300 to 400 lines, but it is not going to be anything different than either typing it into the text box, clicking it on a button, or selecting from a drop down, or checking a radio button or a checkbox and selecting a radio button, things like that, right? That's basically the test case. So either I can write the test case, since this does not require me to do more than 1, 2, and 3 things in here. So I could go ahead and then write the test case, or I could record it. So either way is just fine with me. So why don't I just go and then write that test case? So here, let me get started with the project. So here I go, new project, and since I'm going to be introducing you to a data-driven framework, let's begin what we do. In the previous class, I have gone here and I've taken this unit test framework, which is out of the box available from Microsoft, but we have seen it, and majority of the time this kind of a framework is used by developers to do their own unit testing. So as a software engineer, as an automated software test engineer, you should be building frameworks. So the best way to build a framework is by going into the Visual C# and select a template. So the template that you could select, you could either get it from Windows Desktop, that is basically a category, and under it you have a bunch of templates in here. We will be using something called a class library. So I'm going to be going into a class library, and in the class library, what I will be doing is I will be using my NuGet packages to download Selenium, as well as NUnit framework. So NUnit framework is basically a framework which is can be referred to as a third party, only because it's not from Microsoft. So we got to integrate that. We got to bring into our project. So let's create the project first. So what is important here is for you to know how we are creating the project after the fact that we have seen how to do this unit test, and we have also seen the console application. But the sad part or the drawback of using the console application is we are relying rather on the function that gets generated as a part of this template, which is the main function. So we got to be calling our test case from within the main function. It is going to work, but again, we are not utilizing some of the open source frameworks that are available to us, in the industry today. That's what is being used, NUnit framework, particularly if you're working with the C# .NET environment. So even though we could do the testing using console, but the preferred way is get a class library. So I'm going to get a class library, and in here I will just go about naming it. And since I'm going to be creating this project, let's say it's TrainingRite, and it's data-driven testing and using NUnit. So that's what I'm going to call it. I mean, name is a name. You could call it anything you want, right? So that's basically what we are doing. Okay, the next thing is, once I get the name, I am going to hit OK. So it's going to take a couple of seconds depending on how fast your machine is, and it's going to spit at you a class called class1. As you can see, it is spitting this class called class1. Class1 is a very generic name, so I would rather not use that name. So I would rename it to something which is more descriptive. So here's a question from Mike. He says, so the framework has the main, okay. No. In fact, if the question is, does the framework has a main function? No, we are trying to get away from the main function. So what we will do is we will have any function or any name given to a function, preferably a descriptive name that can basically tell us that we are doing a test case. So let's say if it is a test case for login, I can name my test case as a login test case. I don't have to say main. So main is a function that basically is used in languages like Java and C# and so many other languages. So since we are not doing any development work or any work that is going to be executing our code in a sequential manner, that we have to place the code in a main function, so we will take away ourselves from that restriction of putting the code inside a main function. So that's why we will rather take the help of NUnit framework that will allow us to name our functions any name we want. If you want to call it main, you can call it main, but if you don't want to, that's fine. So with that, let me just show it to you that this is what you're going to get out of the box when you open or when you create a project with a class library template. So here we get a class. Now the generic name for this class is class 1, and if you come in here, this is what it is saying, that it is class 1. Now I need to change the name of this class. This class basically is going to hold all my tests for TrainingRite. So what I can do is I can come down here, the file name, and I can say this is tr test, let's say. So this will have all the tests for TrainingRite, right? And I will hit enter, and it's going to give me a warning saying that, hey, you are going to rename a file. Would you like to perform a rename in this project of all the references to the code element class 1? Bottom line is it saying that, hey, wherever there is class 1, I am going to go and then change it to whatever name you have given. Do you want me to do that? Of course we want you to do that. So hit that, and it's going to go and then change that. So we have a class here. Okay, very good. Now inside the class, my intention, my goal is to do what? My goal is to create some test cases, right? So my first test case is going to be for login. Let's say I want to have at least, to begin with, let's say I want to have like 2 test cases. One would be a login, and the other one is a new member test case. So how do I go about creating a skeleton code for a test case? That is nothing but a function. So I can go ahead and I can call it either a public or a private function, right? Depending on what I intend to do with it. So as of now, I will go with trust me, this is not of big significance what we are doing at this moment, whether to call it public or private, but later on, as I progress further into after today's class, it's going to become a little more interesting, because you will see me taking you deeper and deeper into something called object-oriented programming. So bear with me for a couple more minutes till we build a skeleton here. So the function that we will be writing is public void, and then I will give it a name of the function. The name of the function, let's get TC as in short for test case, and this is a login test case. So here is the skeleton function. The implementation of that is here. I will do the implementation here. Now, this to you and to me, TC is a test case, but to Visual Studio, it doesn't know that this is a test case. So how are we going to make sure that Visual Studio understands that this is a test case? We'll come to that in a minute. Now, before that, since we promised ourselves that we'll have 2 test cases in here, the second one being public void and TC new member, right? Again, this is the skeleton code, and I am going to, sorry about that. So that's that, and I'm just going to remove this. That's the second one. All right. Okay. Now, every time you're doing something in the project, what I would suggest is create or rather make sure that you have this habit of, as you type things, once you type a significant amount, and that significant amount could be even 2 lines depending on what you're doing, make sure that you go and then save it, right? So save it every time, so that if something happens, this should not go away, right? And if you have really done something big that you think that you have done that demands a a compilation of it, you could just go in here and then say build solution. When you say build solution, before you do a build solution, go into the view and have this output window ready. When you have the output window ready, right, here it'll show you what is happening. Whatever actions you perform, it is going to confirm to you that your actions are being executed, and it'll talk back to you in a way that you could have a good feeling about that. Yes, everything is going good, or if there are any errors, then you should be taking some actions and then trying to fix those errors. So as of now, we have refactor. Refactor is renaming everything. So I did one part of it, to change the class 1 to TR test, and then it did refactor, and then it named class 1 to class test everywhere over here. Next thing that I did here is I did create these two functions. So I will go ahead and I will try to build the solution. So if I say build solution, now notice the output is showing build, and it says build started, and and then it says build 1 succeed. Right? Okay. Now, understand that here my objective is to build some test cases. Now, Visual Studio would not understand this as a test case, neither this as a test case. The reason for that is this TC doesn't mean that it's a test case. To you and me, it's a test case. So how can you make the Visual Studio understand this is a test case? For that, you have to bring inside your project a framework which is available right now, that is called the NUnit framework. So a little bit reading on NUnit is expected, and that is basically by going to Google and saying, okay, I need NUnit. Is fine. It's going to take you to the NUnit homepage, and here you could read a little bit about it. I don't want to go and then read this for you. You could do it. I would rather show you how this thing works, right? How this thing works. There are a few things like what you see here, Visual Studio Test Adapter for NUnit 3.0, right? CTP 7 released, right? So sometimes you have to read these things and try to understand what they are talking about. So I will talk about these things as we progress. Right now, I want to draw your attention to the fact that NUnit is basically a framework for all the .NET languages. So NUnit is not used in Java testing. There we use JUnit. Here we use the NUnit, right? Okay, so now, in order for me to bring NUnit into my project, there are a couple of ways of doing that. I could go to their website and I could download. And when I download, as you can see, there are different versions of it. The current release right now is 3.0. 3.0, what is the date today? Today is November 18th. It came out about 2 days back, right? It literally came out about 2 days back. So I am not too comfortable running and then getting it. So I would basically work with 2.6.4. But here is a warning to you folks. Now, when you are going to download, there are a couple of ways of doing it. Now, Visual Studio has got a feature. I'm repeating myself because I recall mentioning it to you in the last class. Visual Studio has a feature wherein you don't manually have to go to these individual sites and download them, and downloading is basically a zip file, and then you have to extract the DLLs from it and then put those DLLs into your solution, into your project, which I will do it. I will do it in the later part of the day today. So what usually we used to do till about 2 years back, this feature was not there. What feature is not there? Of course, we are in a solution. Inside a solution, this is a project, right? Inside the project, you could right click and you have manage NuGet packages. NuGet packages, basically what it is this is a way of rather than going out of Visual Studio, going to Google, searching for it, downloading it. This is all a tedious process. So here they are saying that forget about all that. Visual Studio itself has an integration here. There's a built-in capability using this NuGet packages to get any package from the NuGet repository. So what is this NuGet repository? Basically what it is any company out there in the world, right? Any software company, if they come out with any new version of their software that is being used, you can, if you are the owner of that software, you can build that software and you could upload it to the NuGet repository. So it's a central repository from where anybody and everybody using this Visual Studio tool could go and then download the package from there, right? So I need to download what? NUnit. So I come in here and use NUnit, right? Type NUnit. Now notice when you do NUnit, right? When you do NUnit, NUnit gave you, right? This came out 2 days back, right? Now, if somebody doesn't know much about the versions of NUnit, if I had not taken you here and shown you this part and all that, you would just blindly go and then copy this one. Like what we did 2 days back, I went in and then I installed this. Now, there is no harm in doing that, right? It should work, and it did work, but it did not work unless I rebooted it, right? So, because probably that's what it needed. So what I would suggest is don't rush to using the any software. There is a thumb rule, about using a software. That is, if the latest version is N, if the latest version is N can be any number, you should always go with either N-2, if you cannot go that far, N-2, go with N-1. So if the latest version is N being 3, you should go with N minus, 3 minus 1 at least. So 2, anything in 2. So if you notice, this is the latest. So I'm looking for, so you don't find it here. So what you do is you just go and say version 2, right? So now when you do that, as you notice something in here, right? You have here NUnit. This is not only the adapter, but it also includes the 2.6.4 framework. So coming back in here, this is the next stable version, 2.6.4, and that's what we are going to get in here. So this is both two things. If you see here, this is a separate NUnit, and then there is the adapter. And why is the adapter used? Again, I have explained it to you in the previous class. The adapter is used because if you go under, if you I will not go. If you go under test and if you use under Windows, it will give you the Test Explorer. Test Explorer is nothing but it gives you the ability to look at the execution of all your tests in the project, whether the test did ran or whether they built successfully or which one failed, which one passed, what is the, so all that is given in the Test Explorer. So Test Explorer is a built-in ability of Visual Studio to query your project to find out what it is and what's going on. Now, since we will be using NUnit, NUnit is a third party. It is not Microsoft. It's a third party. So now when you bring it in your project, now that will not be able to talk to your Test Explorer. So we also have to bring, along with the NUnit framework, we also have to bring in the NUnit test adapter. So this is, two things in one package. We are getting the framework as well as the test adapter. Unlike here, it is different, framework isn't different, and then this is the adapter is different. So here we get both. So I'm just gonna be choosing this and hitting install. So it's going to take 1 or 2 or 3 seconds depending on how fast your machine is, and then it'll go, and when you see a green check mark here, that means that it is installed. And if you need to see it, when you expand the references, you see that NUnit utility, NUnit framework, NUnit Visual Studio Test Adapter, all of these are added in here. Now, what else do you need to add other than this? You need to add Selenium. So again, you go into the references, right click on that, add, you could do add reference if you have downloaded Selenium from the website. You could do an add reference and bring it. Since we are going with the NuGet packages, so I will go in here and I will look for Selenium. And when you look for Selenium, of course, we will be taking the Selenium WebDriver. I install that, and I will install the support classes. That's all. These two I will install, right? Since I'm not doing RC server, so I would not use that. Okay, we got that. So if you see here, I got my WebDriver and I got my whatever other classes that I need, WebDriver support, I got that. Okay, now we have the NUnit. Now this is a test case according to us, but according to Visual Studio, it is not. So how can we make this class, the whole class, how can we say that this class is dealing about test cases? So we will say that this class is a test fixture, right? So now notice if I'm trying to type it, I don't get any help from the, I am not getting any help from the IntelliSense. That means if I'm not getting any help, that means that I have it in my project, but I don't have it in my class. So I have to go and do using, and using what? Using NUnit dot framework, right? If I say using NUnit dot framework, now take a look at it. Now if I do this and if I do test, it is showing me everything now. Test fixture. What is this test fixture? What it means is this class is holding things related to a test, things related to tests. So what are the things related to tests? Let's start off here. This is a function. How can I designate this function as a test case? Simple, you come in here and then you do test, and this is designated as a test case. Now if I come in here and then do the same, this is designated as a test case. All right, so that is designated as a test case. Now what I can do is, notice I have no code inside. I have no code inside, but still, in order to make sure that my test adapter is working, I should be seeing these two test cases here. I should be seeing. Now mind you, you will not, if you add any test cases in here, it's not gonna immediately show up here unless you go and you build them. So I will save it. Now you would say, what is there for me to build because I have no code in here? That's fine, but still the integration of the communication between the test cases and the test explorer will be established if everything is good, meaning that my Visual Studio test adapter and unit is good. You could see by building it. So you come in here and you build it. In the bottom, you should see that you're building it, and here you should see that it is trying to communicate with this. And if it lists both of these tests in here, that means that my environment is fully functional. And as you can see, my environment. So this is what we were struggling with in the previous class, because we took NUnit 3, number 1, right? And since I took I did not rebooted it. That was probably day 1. It came out on November 15th. Our previous class was on November 16th. So it was not even 1 day old. So who knows what were in there that it needed that reboot. So we went back to the old one, and then everything is dandy here. So there's a question here from Mike. Is the NuGet repository a Microsoft service? It is not a Microsoft, but I will not be surprised. No, the NuGet is, yeah. What happens, Microsoft doesn't create all of these things as Microsoft. What happens is there are some smart people like you who come up with an idea, and then you are doing something. And then if you know, anything these days, anything you want to build, you come up with an idea, you do that, and you put it out in you know, GitHub, right? It is a repository for people to you know, try their softwares. You know, if you have any good idea you come up with, you put it out there, and then you push it out and people are looking, and then if they download, if they start to use their your code and it starts to get some traction, then companies like Microsoft will talk to you, will sort of like buy you out, meaning that either they will purchase your patent if you have any on that software, and then they give you quietly without you making any noise, maybe $5 million, and then they take it, and in the next release Microsoft will release it as their software, right? So was this built by Microsoft? I doubt. I seriously doubt. It is definitely a third party. So now coming back to, as you can see, these two are identified now as the test cases. That means that my NUnit Visual Studio Test Adapter is fully functional. Now I need to have my test case in here. Now, going back to day 2, I guess, in day 2 or maybe in day 1, I showed you as how to write the test case. Since it is 3 lines, I will do it. I will write this test case. New member, I will record it. So since this is 2-3 lines, I would do it. So to begin here, I will go in and I will say that we have to open the browser first, correct? We have to open the browser and go to this TrainingRite.net. Let me write that line of code. So to open the browser, Visual Studio doesn't do it, so we need to use Selenium. We already have Selenium WebDriver in here. Do we have it in our using? No, we don't. So how do we bring it? It's as simple as, why don't you tell me what should I be typing in here? So if you have said that, oh, come on, you should go type using openqa.selenium, then I would say, yeah, that's what it is. Now, this is the library, but from this library, I will be using OpenQA, and I want to use the WebDriver that will be opening, let's say, Firefox. So that is a Firefox, right? So now I can go ahead, and now that I have said that I'm using the Selenium library, this Selenium library has everything that it can give me, which will help me to do what? To type something into a text box, to click on a button and do all that. Now I need a WebDriver, and the WebDriver should be configured to open a particular type of browser. So that's why I use the Firefox. So now let's open the browser in here in my login. So to open the browser, I have to basically instantiate that WebDriver. So I will use the WebDriver, the interface class, and then I will go OWD equals new, and you could do, as you notice, as I'm typing, it is giving me whatever it is, right? So it's just giving me the code. This is called IntelliSense. This feature is called IntelliSense. So I have the OWD as the WebDriver now. Now, once I get the WebDriver, the next line of the WebDriver is, oh, WebDriver, I want you to navigate, right? Navigate and go where? I want you to go to a URL, and the URL being this URL. Now, once I get to this URL, now the next thing that I would like to do once I get to this URL is I have to go in here and I have to click and type something in it. So what is this? In order to know what is that, I will just go into my, and all this I have already talked to you about. That's why I'm going a bit fast, and you stop me if you have any trouble with what I'm doing in here, and do stop me if you have any trouble. Please do that, because no point in like you just sitting there. So I click here and I come in and click on that. All right, so that should give me yeah, Keith, if you your yes doesn't, I mean, I don't know what you mean by yes. Is it like shall I stop, or will you be asking me questions? So yeah, I did went over this. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So coming over here, I am going to go and use whatever it is giving me. So it's giving me ID. So let me very quickly write that code. So the ID for this is txt phone. Without wasting our time, 1 more minute and I will write that code. So I would say, hey, WebDriver, I want you to find the element. Find element by, you say, by what? By. So by, and we can say find element by ID. So this ID, and ID whose ID is that. And once I find the element, what do you do on that element? So here on this element, you can do something called send keys. Send keys means that, okay, you want this to happen on those on that box. So what do you want it to happen? Put this 732.998.6650. So that's what you want it to. Oops, type on that thing. Okay, beautiful. Next thing is I would like to do the same on this password. I would like to type something. So let me get the password. So I come in here and type the password. So as far as the password is concerned, the ID of the password is txt password. So I'm just going to take that. And there's a question from Mike. I hate to ask this, but it's bugging me. Why is the WebDriver an interface object? Basically, what happened here is you can implement it however you want to. So that's why they are giving you as an interface class so that you could implement it and make it as a Firefox driver or an Internet Explorer driver or a Google Chrome driver, or for that matter, you could, any new driver you would come out, any new browser that is coming out, let's say as an example Edge came out. So if they made it as an interface class, so you are basically configuring it to be of any type. So that's why they left it as an interface class. So WebDriver. This class has all in it that we could implement. So from the interface class, I am implementing that as a Firefox driver. So that's why. So coming back, I will go ahead and do this owd.findElement and find element again by, and this time again ID. And here the ID of this is going to be that, and I will again send keys to it, and I will put a password. The password is password, let's say, and once we do that, the last thing that I would like to do here is click on a button. Now let me go and click on this button. So if I go here, do that again, this again was covered on day one. So let me just quickly finish off with this one tiny thing here. Is btn submit is what is the ID of that. And now after this line, you will see me doing something new that will start to make a lot of sense. By dot ID, and this is the reason I sometimes prefer doing what some call the recording, right? Okay, now let's see. So we are clicking on it, right? So we are clicking on it, and once I click on it, of course, it's going to go to the next page, and I can do an assertion on the next page. I could do an assertion. Now we will just sit tight for a couple of minutes as far as the assertion is concerned. So let's say I want to do this, and then after this, I would like to say close, right? So I would like to say close, and let's see. Now that I have this test case, let me just run this test case and see if it is behaving the way we want it to behave. So a bunch of things. Firefox should get open, and it should do this. Again, no big deal. So you come in here, you right click. What we are seeing now is how we run using the NUnit framework. I mean, big deal, because we have seen something pretty close to what we are doing on day one, but with the unit testing. Here we are doing it with the NUnit. So here it goes, and it types in, clicks on the button, and it comes here. It says that okay, and it closed the browser. Now I think password with a 0 in there, and let me just right click and run this test and see now if it takes me inside. Okay, so as it takes me inside, I can sort of go and then improvise it a little bit. As you can see, it is typing and it is taking me. So you saw my name there. So that's that. Okay, good, right? Next thing that we want to do here is now that we see that it is working, I would like to whatchamacall, I would like to make use of enhancing it a little bit, the script, because the script is working. But you must try your best not to use any hard coding of the data in the script. The next thing you should do is, wherever you have something, right, that can be passed to a script as a different data, you should try to make it as an variable. So this one, 732998666, this is some data that we are passing, right? So I would come in here and I would go here and say I want to declare that as a variable. So how can I declare it as a variable? Let's say if I say string, and this is what phone number, right? String phone number, and I would say string password, right? Okay, now what I can do here is this can be the value of my phone number. So I could come in here and give it a value, and the value is that. And for the password, I can give that a value, and the value is going to be that. So here I can use phone number, and here I can use password, right? I can use the password. Now, and even this I can change it, and I can call it string URL, right? So here it will be URL, right? So as you can see, I have taken from my script, I have wherever inside my script, wherever I had data, I took the data out, right? And I placed the data into the variables. So now that I have made that change, right, I would go ahead and I would run it to see everything is dandy. So as we go and run it, it should run, right? Okay. Very good. It opened it, it typed that, and that's it, right? It did run with some minor modifications. Okay, now what we're going to do is we will do one extra piece in here. That is, we will, let's say, go in here. I don't know, in the previous class, let me just use, because I don't know what other, I know only about my username and password, right? I don't know about others. So let me just get some data about others. So bear with me. Don't worry about what I'm doing in here. I'm just trying to get the from my database, what are the other users. So we'll get some users, right? So basically I got to get their phone number and their password. So I'm just trying to find that. So you don't have to worry about it, at least not immediately, not right now, but down the road I'll show you something about the databases and all that. So just ignore what I'm doing for the next minute or two. But in order for you to understand what I'm doing, I'm just telling you that I'm going into my system, TrainingRite, and looking at my TrainingRite information about my TrainingRite customers. So if I write a query and try to find out the select star from TR customers, and if I execute the query, I would get a bunch of customers, and I am looking at these are their phone numbers, so, and this is their password. So there is this one, so I'm just going to take that, and then there's a password called JMeter, I guess. So I'm just going to come here to my test case, and this is going to be that. Whoa, is that so? 7329966. Oh, she used my. Okay, and here the password is JMeter. And this is what I'm going to do. What I would do is I would not close the browser because I want to see something. So I am putting this as a comment. So I'm not closing the browser. So I want to see, when we log in with this phone number and JMeter, what comes up. I want to see. So I right click on that, run the test, and let me see. So it is going to execute the test. So it will open the browser and it will go there and it will type in 732.998.6650, right, and JMeter, and let's see what happens. Okay, so according to my system here, there should be a customer whose name is Shruti and Iyer. So 1 second. Let me just run it. Okay, so okay, I'm gonna take this guy 703.998, whatever that is. I'm just gonna take that, and the password is that password. So let me take that. Now, if you say what happened, why did not, I'll tell you in a minute what could be the reason for that. This is the password. So I'm just going to take the password. Even if this comes out as not understood, because we know that these are there, but if it is still not coming back as logged in, then we know that the password could be, there could be some spaces after that. So let's see. I mean, I am maximizing it, but we could maximize in the code also, that you know as how to do that. Okay, so we are able to log in and we are seeing this. Okay, what I want to see is once I log in, I am seeing this, right? I'm seeing this. So if I see this, that means that I am successfully logged in. So if let's say if I put some other password, and if I do that, I will not be seeing that number. Nowhere here that number is shown up. So if we are successfully logging in, then this was the password, and when you click on that, you should be seeing this number. So now we want to use something called an assertion. The assertion is, first of all, I should be able to go and capture something. That's number one. And number two, after I capture whatever I'm capturing, I have to compare it to something and say that if my username, if my phone number is equal to this phone number, my test case pass. Otherwise, my test case fail. Right? So we got to do something of that sort. Right? So we got to do something of that. So that is done using the assertions. Now the question is, where are the assertions coming from? Right? Where can we get those assertions from, and how do we go about testing these assertions and all that? So that's what we have to be learning. So in order to do that, we are getting those assertions and all that from the NUnit framework. We're getting the assertions from the NUnit framework. So now let me show you how the assertions they work. So for assertions, now I did talk to you very briefly about it. Now let me go in here. First of all, I am not capturing that number. Let me just show you how assertions work. So let's say we have a variable, right, string, and this is let's say the expected data, right? And string actual data, right? Okay, so expected data, let's say, is let me just put in something in here. Expected data is when we run the test, we should be expecting that we have welcome, right? Welcome to TrainingRite. Let's say welcome to TrainingRite, something like that. This is expected. Now, let's say the actual data says welcome to TrainingRite.com. Now, expected data is different from the actual data, right? So we are not actually going to the website to do that. I'm just saying this is the expected, this is the actual. So if I do an assertion, will this fail or will this pass? It is supposed to fail because the expected is not actually equal to the actual one, right? But how can we even test it? So for that, we will do something called assert dot. Now assert, and we can use assert are equal, are not equal, are not the same, and then it contains so many ways we can do the assertion, right? So let's say if I go and use, believe it or not, if I use assert that, right? Assert that, verify that, assert that what? Okay, you have to give a condition. The condition is, let's say, the expected data. Assert that the expected data, right, is equal to what? Is equal to the actual data. So I will put this is equal to the actual data. So if I say assert that the expected data is equal to the actual data, so it is going to compare this with that. If it compares that with that, and if both of them are the same, the assertion will be true. So this is a condition that it is testing, true or a false. If it returns true, then test case will pass. If it returns a false, the test case will fail, right? Okay, so now we will save, we will build, and then we will execute it. So wherever I am inside the test case, I could just go and then run it, or I could also run from here. So I could say run the selected test case. So I'm just running it right now. So I mean, this has nothing to do with what some call the website, because I'm not asserting anything in the website, but I'm just giving you some idea of where the assert comes from. So this will, okay, the test case, if you see here, the test case did fail. Now, nothing here failed, right? Because we did not test anything here, but basically the test case failed, and you have the reasoning for the test case fail. If you see here, message, expected string is length is 27, but was 23. Strings differ at index 23. So it is saying expected is this TrainingRite.com, but was TrainingRite. So this is that. So if I make both of them the same, .com, both of them the same now, right? And if I don't even have to build every time, because once I'm running it, it gets built. So here it is running. So now what I'm doing in here with the assert, it has nothing to do with how this thing works, but so be it. So here it goes, it runs, and then it is done, and it is going to, I will close the browser, and it is true, test pass, right? Because this assertion is good now, right? Okay, this is one of the assertion. Basically, assert here is coming from this NUnit framework. So since the NUnit framework is already there, we are using it. we could just use assert on the fly. So I'm using assert on the fly, assert dot that, and then I could get this because all this is coming from that. So let's say if I don't have this, if I do that, now all of this text fixtures fail. So this will tell you where it is coming from. So sometimes if you want to try it out, you can try it out by commenting, and then whatever is failing. So this will tell you that assert is coming from there, test is coming from there. Of course, the test fixture is coming from there because they all fail by me taking it out. So by you putting it back and then saving it, and now everything is good to go. All right. Okay. Very good. All right. Now what we will do is we will go to, yeah, it can be inside that class. It is static inside the framework. Assert is a static class. That is true, Mike. Yep. So now coming back to, we have hard-coded these values. We have hard-coded these values. What if you want to test for 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 values? How can we do that? Now there are a couple of ways of doing it. You can get the data from arrays, right? We can get the data from arrays, or we can get the data from Excel. So before we get the data from Excel, I will take you into arrays, and arrays are okay. They are in case of a small test where you don't have about 50 rows, or you don't have like 24 different sets of data, then arrays are fine. But if you have a lot of data to test, then arrays are not necessarily the best way of doing it. Then you have to put your data either in a CSV file, or you got to put your data in an Excel file, or get your data from your database. So what you do is you we will start off with the basic simplest of all arrays. So whenever you need to pass to a test, this is a test now. To it, if you want to pass some data, the data is the phone number and password. We need to keep sending different ones. So what you do is, if these are the only two things that you need to pass, then to this test here, see the test, you will say that while I'm running a test, I am going to pass to you those two parameters, and the values, you will take the values. So let's say 732.998.6650, that's 1, comma, password. So this will run with one set of data. Let's say this will run with one set of data. Now what you need to do is this is for one set of data. You need to pass with multiple, let's say multiple sets of data. So the second set of data, you could pretty much go and copy this, right? So you are copying and changing the data. So here I could use, let's say, this value, right? This value, I would use that, and I would use this as the password. This is the password. So that as the password, and I will take one more probably from here. Let me just take let's say that, and password is Sunil123. So I'm just going to take that and come in here, and I will do right, comma, Sunil123. That's the password. Okay, now notice as I try to pass this data, I'm trying to pass this data. Now this is the name of the function. This is the name of the function. As I'm passing this data and that data, and these datas are separated by comma. Let's say tomorrow you have more things to pass, then you could pass by comma and have one more field coming up in here. So in this case, we have only two. Okay. So what is this data? To you and me, that's a phone number. But how would the system know? So what you do is, as you're passing the number of parameters, as you pass these number of parameters, you should be telling the function, what those parameters are. So here we will say that string, and I will say one is the phone number, comma, string, the other one is the password. Now, once we do that, then there is no need for this too, because this was originally we were using it. So I'm going to comment this, and now notice that whatever I am passing, this will be my test case. I'll use it as a test case. So to this test case, I'm passing the data. This is the first argument. This is the second argument. And based on this function or this test case taking these, so as you declare them, that's how they are going to map. This is going to map to the first one. This is going to map to the second one. So that's how you are going to take that. So now that we get the data, so I have 3 iterations, 1, 2, 3 iterations. So this test will run 3 times. So I don't want to open 3 browsers, so I'm just going to close this, and it is going to run 3 times. So now what I will do is I will save it, and I will come anywhere in here, right click, run test, and let us run. So the first time it is going to run with whatever that value is, and if you notice in here, it is taking this value that and it is going to run. So if we maximize it, we could have, but now 253, you saw that, and that was 253 one run. So now you see that this executed. Now we have 2 more left, so it is going to execute that. Let me just do that. So the next one that you are seeing is 732.998.6650. That for me, that it ran, and now we are running the 3rd iteration. So once you run the 3rd iteration, now as we are running this, right now, what I'm going to do is I will show it to you. Okay, these 3 iterations are executed, right, and all three did pass, right? As you can see, all 3 did pass. So those are the 3 iterations that we ran. Okay, now basically, if the way you are going to pass attributes to it, a test is basically if you're not passing any data to it. So you are just signifying this function as a test. But if you are passing some data to it, then call it this test case needs this data. So that's how you're going to pass. So whenever you're passing any data to your test case, then you would use it as a test case. Otherwise, you would use it as a test. And then there are some other attributes also that I will talk to you. So what I'm going to do is, I don't know if you have figured out the way I impart the training. I will slowly, step by step, I start to start giving you more and more. So I don't believe in like giving you what is going to be something more that is coming in here, because as I start to give you some example in here in the script, I will go ahead and then I will add, and I'll show you what else is going to come in here. So at this point, what I am going to do is I am going to make believe that if you have to do the new member, you will be able to not only just create a new member, but you should be able to parameterize the new member by passing the data from the arrays like what we have done. This not necessarily is the best way to do it. As long as you have small set of data, it's fine. But imagine here, in case of a new member, we'll have a lot of data, because new member is this test case. Let me go in here. New member is this. Let's say we don't have this. So when you go in here, this is new member. So the new member has how much? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 parameters that you have to pass. So probably this would not be the best case in here to pass like 8. and create like 8 of those, right? So we should be looking at something better to do it. Now, that brings us to an interesting topic, and that is what is the next best way to do it. The next best way to do it is you should, and again, I will be showing it to you, the same test case I'll be showing, and I want you to do the TC new member as the assignment, as the homework. So what I'm going to do here is, now that we have seen the hard-coded way of doing it, yeah, Michael, you're right. Would you consider a test fixture as a test suite? Yeah, that is correct. That's what it is. Now, different, if you are coming, I did not want it to give, because I used to give examples comparing with some other tool, and one of the students from the previous batch, she made a good comment, and after that I stopped comparing. She said, you know, how would you expect somebody who is not having a knowledge of the other framework to even understand if you give an example comparing with the other framework? So, and she made sense to me, and then after that I stopped saying that in JUnit it's a test suite or things like that. Anyway, coming back in here, what I would do in here is I will do the same login, but this time we are not going to do the login with the hard-coded data. I would rather bring the data from a CSV file. So let me prepare a CSV file. To prepare a CSV file for this test case, right, it is going to be pretty simple. I will go in and then I will put in whatever I need to put in that CSV file. So here we go. I will take Notepad and let me do this. In Notepad, I will have the fields in the Notepad. Now, again, let me do it for this example. Why don't we just go ahead and then record this? Let's do it for this one. Why don't we just go ahead and then record it and get the script, and then have the script in here for this one, and parameterize it using the CSV. All right, that makes sense. Okay, so for the new member, this is what we got to do. I will go ahead and I will just record the script. Right, recording the script is go in here, right, and let me do this. This is from the previous class, right? What is this? I don't even know. So I go here, options, format, HTML, going back, right? One more time. If you don't know how to, and shame on Selenium IDE guys that they did not give us a button to reset it, right? So we got to do this, do that, go format, do that, and do that, and come here. Now it gets, so 5 steps. They should have given us just like a button or something to reset it, but that's all right. That's all right, right? So here we go. Now it is already in the record mode. So we are recording on the TrainingRite.net website, right? So let me just take you to the TrainingRite.net website. This is that website, TrainingRite.net website. So you come in here and you click on this sign up button. So I click on the sign up button and I come here. Now I will go ahead and I am going to do it for some name like James Bond, but then we can parameterize it with all of our names, right? So I would call James.Bond at TrainingRite.net, right? Password is password 007, password 007, and his number is 707 707 0007, let's say, whatever that number is. So we will go, that's his number, and here I will say this is from Selenium C#, day 4 November 2015 batch. And once I submit, right, once I submit, and I have this one. So let me get an assertion on this one. So right click. So notice I'm not coding any of these things. I'm not writing any code. I'm just doing, let us see what kind of code. So we want to assert text at this location, assert text to be customer added successfully. So I just do that, and everything is done behind the scenes. So if I go back and look at that, so see, assert text is there, and that, and this, everything is in here. I will just stop the recording, right? I stop the recording. Now I need to convert this code. So options, format, convert it into C# NUnit with WebDriver, convert that, hit OK. Now here I gotta play a little smart here. First things first, we talked about that. This is the using, depending on what we are doing, we will have it. Namespace is basically a way of organizing your classes. You can have one or more classes inside it. So you are saying namespace and public class. Since I did not give it a name here, untitled, so that's why it is calling it untitled. Here is some declaration of the variables and objects and whatnot, and then it gave us a bunch of functions in here. Now look at the attributes that it is using. There's something called a setup. So this is the setup, and then there is something called a teardown. So this is the teardown, and here is my test. Here is my test. So from the test, this is what I need from the test. So let me just take everything inside the test. The test is ending here. Notice that test is ending. So I took everything from here. Do a Control C to copy. Come in here, and this is my test. So I'm just going to be pasting it here, right? Control V to paste. Now, first things first. If you notice, it's all driver. So if I go back in here and see what the heck is a driver, right? Why are they using driver? And if you see up here, you will see that WebDriver driver. So they have that, and also they have driver is new Firefox driver. So either you can take that code, but since we know as how to write these things, so we can come in here and say that, okay, if you see OWD, what is OWD? It is nothing but it's a WebDriver new file. So I can literally take that line, right? Or even take these two lines and come in here and go here, right? Go here and paste that. Now notice here we are calling it OWD, but here the copy paste, they are calling it as a, oh, one second. Sorry about that. Give me a second. I apologize. Forgive me. I mean, I hate distractions, but you know. Anyway, so here we are. So if you see here, this is all driver. So I can rename it to driver, and once I do that, all these squigglies went away. So this is driver. Now notice WebDriver driver, new Firefox driver navigate to where do you want to go? So where do I want to go? I can say that I want to go, if you see here, base URL is TrainingRite.net, right? So that's base URL is a variable, TrainingRite.net. So what they have done in here is the same thing in here, Same thing in here. I'm trying to do it slightly differently. Driver.navigate, go to URL, base URL, and that. So rather than doing this, I can say, and this URL can be this URL. So if you are understanding the code, then there's no harm in copy pasting the code and all that, as long as you're understanding. So you can improvise on these things, on the code that got generated from it. So we got that. Now coming down in here, it says that driver find element by, notice the new thing, CSS selector. Now there's no harm in using CSS selector or ID or anything that works. So it is clicking on that button, going and clearing the first name, then putting James and then Bond and then and comes to a point wherein it clicks on that button, right? And then it is asserting. Now my assert, the way I did assert was assert that expected data is equal to that. Now this is another way of doing it. Assert are equal, and then it said it is going to put this customer information added successfully. This is what we should get from this position. From which position? From this position. So if you see, so I think I have shown you that as well in the previous class. So we got that. So we have the whole code here, right? Whole code in here. So if I run this test case, first of all, this TC new member test case, if I run this test case, it should work. Let us see if it is working or not. And then we will talk about parameterizing it. So we come in here, right click on that, run this selected test. So if I'm running the selected test, so it needs to open the browser and clicks on that button, take you to the new that James Bond, okay, that. I'm not closing it, so the browser remains there. So let me just get out of here. Test did pass, everything turned out good. Okay, beautiful. So now that you have an idea, there's a question here from Keith. What is the difference between assert that and assert are equal? Which one is better to use? Now these are two different ways of saying the same thing. So however you want to say it, it's fine. There is no hard and fast rule that you should use one over the other. Assert are equal is basically more popular, and that's what it is used in the industry, but you would find some of the test engineers using assert that as well. So it's a personal choice. Whatever works for you is good. All right, so there's no hard and fast rule that you have to use. Now coming back to the script did run, right, and we saw that it did work. Everything was fine. We saw that. All right, okay, good. Now what we want to do here is 1 second, let me just, so the recording, so we noticed that now from the recording, however big this recording was, if you look into it, right, there's so much of stuff in here, but we just took whatever we needed and we got it to work, right? Now there are things like the try-catch block, and which I briefly talked about in the previous class. You could implement that as well, but as we go along in this course, we will be doing that. Now the thing that you have to take away from this recording is there is no binding on you that you should always write and create the script. It's fine as long as your script works, but here is the but. Don't make the script, right? Don't make the script look ugly. What do you mean by don't make the script look ugly? What do you mean by that? What I mean by that is, once you have a working script, this is a working script now, you have to go and try to enhance it. And the way you enhance it is, rule number 1 is, wherever there is data, you try to use variables there. So the first thing that I got to do in here to make it look a little better is I have to start having my variables. So up here, have all variables clubbed together. So this is string, and I have what just to save some time, I'm using first name as FN, right? Because I want to save some time typing. This is last name. You spell it out. And then we have what? String email, right? And let me keep it. It's fine. And what do we got? When the password and string password and string verify password and string home phone, string cell phone, and string some instructions. Instructions, right? Okay, so I have my variables. Right? I have my variables, and if you see first name, last name, email, password, verify password, home phone number, cell phone number, and basically instructions. I got that. All right. Okay. Now, there's a question here. Can you declare variables outside the functions with NUnit? Absolutely. Yes, you can do that. Now, when there is a need for me to do that, I will do it. And one of the reasons I will do that is because if I want to share, let's say, the URL in multiple, then no need for me to be redundant by creating it here and then creating it up here. So I can just do it at one place, and I will do that very soon. I'll do that, right? So here, since I have these variables, but these variables, if you see, was declared, was never used. So what I'm going to do is I will start to use one of your names. Let's say I noticed the recording have the clear functions before each send keys. Good practice to clear the field first. That's a good practice to do that. I mean, I'm being lazy, as I told you, that I did not do that over here. But it's always a good practice to clear that, right? Otherwise, it might append. It might keep whatever it is, and then you type whatever it is, so it might not delete that. So it's always good to clear it first and then do that. So yeah, that's the best practice, right? So that's what you should be doing. Okay, coming back, let me name this as Keith, right? So that's the first name, and the last name I will never use, so I will call it last name, and email address is keith.ln@TrainingRite.net, right? .com.net. Okay, password is let me give you a password of let's say New York hyphen Yankees, right? Don't know if you're a Yankee fan, but that's that. If you're not, then forgive me for making you one. So here we'll give him a number 212-555-1212. And are you from Boston? Don't know if you, and if you are from, then you have to forgive me. Okay, so cell phone is 215-555-1212, and instruction is, let's say, Keith is a Yankee fan, right? Okay, so we have all this data. Now notice that this data, right, is again for a single person. This data is for a single person, but let us use these variables in our script. So you notice that now I will get rid of this and say fn, right? You don't have to put fn in the double quotes. If you put fn in the double quotes, the fn as an value will be taken, but if you don't put it as a double quote, fn as a variable will be taken, and any value when you put inside fn will be substituted here. So this is going to be ln, and this is going to be email, right? And this is going to be pwd as the password, and this is going to be verify password, vpwd, and this is going to be the home